am I? I'm Arunima Sen, a 17-year-old innovator, designer, technologist from Bangalore. I know some of you are probably, thank you. I know some of you are probably wondering, what the heck is a 17-year-old doing here? What am I doing here? I don't know. Just kidding. So I enjoy designing solutions to global problems using technology, innovation, and design. And I just finished high school this year, and I decided to take a year off to focus on my work before I start university the next year. So before I dive right into my work and what I've been doing so far, I wanted to share something with you. Since this year's theme is on the contrary, challenging and rebelling against all societal norms, stereotypes, stupid expectations, I decided to share my personal story. I don't want to make it too sobby, but I think that your journey is influenced by your previous experiences, and you learn from your mistakes and your experiences about how to not screw up later in life. So yeah, I was raised by an alcoholic and abusive father who didn't work. And my mom had to work extra jobs so that I could enjoy this, privilege of an education. Since a young age, I always wanted to pursue a career in technology or engineering or somewhere along those lines. But I was told by my paternal family that you're not suited for a career like this. You don't have the guts to do it. I don't know, that was discouraging to say the least. So, the environment at my home wasn't great either. So my mother, I have an elder brother who suffers from autism, and I were continuous victims of my father's domestic abuse and violence. I'm not going to get much into that. So 2 years back, when things went downhill, my mom was battling with her life in the ICU after narrowly escaping death from domestic abuse. And that experience put a perspective, put an entirely new perspective in front of me. I felt so lost. I didn't know the life that lay ahead of me. It was then that I decided that if I wanted to make something out of myself, if I wanted to actually pursue my dreams, I had to get out of my comfort zones and do the unconventional. So yeah, dragged my dad to the court, did all those things, and started a new life with my mother and my brother. So it was really difficult because I was, I guess, just in grade 11. I had to look after my recovering mother, my special needs brother, and still somehow work on my school academics, my projects, and towards accomplishing my dream. Break these shackles. Come out of your comfort zones. If you don't challenge yourself every day, you need to challenge yourself to become a better version of you. If you don't do that, you cannot accomplish anything in life. So yeah, let's get into the work that I've been doing. So many of you would have heard of Greta Thunberg, the Swedish climate activist who recently crossed the Atlantic on her zero-emission yacht to reach New York to speak at the United Nations Climate Summit that, as a matter of fact, is happening today. Climate change is one of the biggest crises the world faces today, and yet there are no actionable efforts to alleviate it. Climate change denial is actually a thing. Since the future is ours, and since we will be the ones suffering from the consequences of climate change, the world needs more leadership and more action on climate change, and more young people are stepping up to act on it. So these are some pictures from the climate change strike in Dublin, Ireland yesterday. I hope you enjoy them. So, yeah, let's get on to this talk about climate change and what we can do about it. So growing up in a major metropolitan city that is densely populated and where energy, electricity, and water shortages are common in many neighborhoods, I realized that our industrial and personal needs were being met at the expense of the environment. Interestingly, the buildings today play an important part in this because they have a huge impact on the environment, and hence they have a huge impact on the climate. The major contributor to climate change is the ever-increasing amount of carbon dioxide emissions. The significant amount of carbon dioxide emissions comes from electricity generation. Today's traditional non-green buildings use up to 72% of the electricity generated. These buildings use more energy, which increases the demand for energy production and contributes to global warming. So I identify as a global citizen, as someone who wants to work towards changing the world for better, as cliched it might sound. So I realized that if I wanted to make an impact at all, why shouldn't I start with identifying a problem around me and designing a solution for it? The unsustainable use of energy and resources and the destruction of ecosystems to fulfill our greed has led to an unprecedented impact on the environment that directly affects our lives. Continuing population growth is projected to add 2.5 billion people in addition to the 7 billion people already living in cities. Without smarter, cleaner, and affordable urban design, we threaten to put millions of individuals at risk of spending their lives in unsustainable, uninhabitable cities with uncertain futures. So some famous architect told that sustainability cannot be like some sort of a moral sacrifice or a political dilemma or a philanthropic cause. It has to be a design challenge. So in an effort to act against some of the environmental challenges that have been caused by unsustainable urban building designs and continuing population growth, Homestead Green was formed as a result of collaboration among teenagers from Norway, Romania, Nepal, Bangladesh, and India. We designed an energy-efficient skyscraper for both commercial and residential use that has a low carbon footprint on the environment. It features all modern conveniences that enhances the well-being of occupants while merging nature and technology to promote a green lifestyle. Designing something like this wasn't easy. We had some really absurd ideas when we started, so I'll take you through that journey. Okay, this is okay. I messed up the slides. So one of the first absurd ideas that we had when we started was having windmills on top of the building. That obviously wouldn't work.
I'm feeling so cool.
And how many of you are watchers, viewers, or fans of How I Met Your Mother? I think this might ring some bells. This was the design for the Goliath National Bank Barney Stinson worked for. So we ran out of ideas. We thought, something like this might really look cool in an urban landscape. We were wrong. So surprisingly, none of our initial ideas reflected in our final prototype. So it gets to say how a designing timeline is a reflective process. You start with an initial idea, you find flaws with it, you make necessary changes, and you end up with something entirely different. You learn from your experience and decide how you can make something better the next time. So we wanted to design a building that would not only be sustainable to reduce environmental impacts, but would also maximize economic resources for reduced costs. So we ended up designing a building with different sustainable technologies like gray water recycling, solar energy harnessing, rainwater collecting, green walls, and integrated systems for close monitoring and distribution of energy and resources. So I don't want to bore you with all the technical aspects of the project, but I do wish to give you an idea of how the building functions. The gray water recycling system recycles gray water from bathrooms and kitchens to be used for different on-site purposes like flushing toilets or watering green spaces. The building is completely powered by energy generated from solar energy, which is generated from solar array panels that covers sides of the building. Green walls covering a side of the building not only purifies the air that's coming in, but also serves as ecological corridors for different birds and insects, which contributes to the fauna adaptation in the urban environment. Lastly, a smart home assistant developed using artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things maximizes the usage of energy. It not only manages all correlated systems in order to create a suitable indoor environment, but it also uses machine learning to adapt to the habits and the preferences of homeowners in order to enhance their comfort. So these are some designs of the building. So a building, so according to water consumption offered by the Water Research Agency, our building has a 32.68% water saving, 63.60% gray water recycling rate, 42.17% cost reduction. It saves 3.2 million of water, recycles 6.3 million gallons of water, and reduces cost by almost $56,000 for each residential site. So we submitted this idea of a green building to an innovation competition called the United Technologies Future of Buildings and Cities Challenge, and we were the grand winner. And thank you. So in addition to receiving the grand prize, we were flown to New York in Florida to interact with UTC professionals. So fun fact about this collaboration, none of us knew each other when we started working on this project. But when UTC flew us all to New York City, meeting each of my teammates in person for the first time, made all the sacrifices, all the grind worth it. And these were some publications. So why do I design? This has kind of an interesting story because I grew up in the headquarters of India's leading space program. So since a young age, I was always interested in how things worked. I was curious about different systems, about how they worked, and this curiosity led me to seek puzzles around me. Seek problems in the form of puzzles around me. And my previous experiences in science, technology, engineering, blah, 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 helped me to mold these designs into reality. And what does design mean to me? It's kind of a hard question because I think it gives me a purpose, a meaning, and it quenches my thirst, I guess, for change and innovation. And yeah, and if I have any key takeaways from my journey so far, it is that if you want to be a change maker, you can be a change maker. You don't need to be someone famous or someone accomplished to do so. Like designing a solution to anything is definitely easier said than done, but don't give up easily just because the odds are not stacked in your favor. You never know what you can end up with. And yeah, thank you.